Mr. Ross Davenport,
Charlie!
how are you?
You like my new studio?
Hey, what can I say? Do you want me to say what I think about it? I'm gonna give you like a 2 out of 10 in the Room Raider scale.
Room Raider, yeah, I follow Room Raider on Twitter. Hopefully, he never gets to me, but I'm not that famous. Yeah.
I'm gonna send this.
I've been banished to my new studio, i.e., the bedroom.
Well, you need to set up that green screen behind you, and right.
Well, you know, shit happens, and I didn't have time for that.
What so, is this some way for me to raise your pay? Is that it? There's no union here in this company, okay? No union allowed.
Next is a strike. Next is a full-on strike. not prompted by me. But listen, we gotta get going here. We got 56 minutes to get this thing done. We got a lot of things to talk about. First of all, today's episode is going to be about youth rugby. It's going to sort of be a youth roundtable. Youth rugby is a lot. There's a lot. People always ask me about youth rugby when I'm out and about. I was at the Rugby ATL youth for the hour and a half or so on Saturday in Boca, the little Rugby ATL camp thing.
How did it go?
And I was just thinking, it wasn't a great turnout. I'm not sure how they got for the rest of the day. They had 13 kids there for the U19 part of it. But as part of my scouting job with USA Rugby, I wanted to get out there to see a couple of kids that I knew about. It was good to see Reardon Sweet over from Naples, Logan Ballinger from Boca, a couple of other kids I was keeping an eye on as well. But yeah. But listen, youth rugby, there's lots of questions about youth rugby. I'm hoping we can get some of those answered tonight by our panel of esteemed guests, Charlie.
Yes.
Because you and I talk about youth rugby, I think, more than we talk about any other
aspects
of Florida rugby.
I would say it's like the most important thing because, you know, it's a future. So
it is very important. And Florida seems to do, I don't know, we seem to have moments where we do a great job of it. We have great representation, you know, in the South and the national stage. But locally, we don't seem to be doing a particularly good job. I think in a lot of people's eyes, not us, I mean, Florida rugby as a community don't particularly seem to be doing a great job of promoting Florida rugby, especially on the girls' side of things. And, you know, there's certain large areas of the country large areas of the state that don't have youth rugby right now for some reason, or have very minimal youth rugby for the amount of population they have. We're going to talk about that. But before we get to all that, let's knock out a couple of news items.
No,
UCF.
Wait. Let's talk about our sponsor first.
Oh yes, talk about
sponsor, because no sponsor, no podcast. Remember,
potentially. Yes, it certainly won't be as good if we don't have a sponsor. That's for sure. Thanks to Brock Roper of Roper Plumbing for sponsoring these last few episodes. Him and his dad have been great servants for Florida rugby, especially up in the mid-east coast there in the Cape Canaveral area with Cape Pirates and Brevard now as well. So keep an eye on Brock. He's coaching Cape Pirates as well as playing for Brevard. He claims to be doing both this year. We'll see how that goes. But always a fun guy to play with, and thanks to him for sponsoring us. So if you're in that area, in the Central Florida area, and need some plumbing help, get in touch with Mr. Roper.
For sure.
As you can see, his number is right there at the bottom, as well as the website.
See, I added it this time.
All right, so
yeah.
Look at you. Executive producer. I don't have any other producers, so you are the only producer, but you are my executive producer.
Okay.
I took an Uber ride today with a chef who said he was an executive chef. I wanted to be like, what's the difference between an executive chef and a chef? But I didn't ask him that because he was driving, so I didn't want to piss him off. All right, UCF men. In our notes, Charlie, you called it the Lonely Bowl. Is that the name of it, or is it the Lone Star Bowl?
The Lone Star. I knew I had screwed it up. I know that.
So UCF did not win the Lonely Bowl, but I think they won the Lone Star. So if those of you that don't
Lone
know,
Star Bowl. Yeah, well, you know.
the college rugby scene's a mess right now. There's all sorts of different organizations running different things. Some in the fall, some in the spring, some doing 7, some doing 15, some doing women only.
In my defense, when the broadcast had UCF for a while as UFC until they noticed and they changed it. So goes both ways.
The day, they had some players that I think could do the UFC back in the day. I'm not sure about these days, but maybe. So for those, as I said, the college rugby's a mess right now, national championship wise. There's teams call themselves national champions when their conference only includes the Northeast. It's a mess. Anyway, bowl games were sort of a way that was discussed to get everybody playing some things nationally. So UCF were invited to play in the Lone Star Bowl in Houston against. It wasn't UConn originally. Who was it, Charlie? It was somebody else.
It was somebody else. Of course, I don't remember. Come on, I can't.
It wasn't Bowling Green, but it was somebody with a B, and they pulled out. So it was UConn in the end. I have no idea how good UConn are as a rugby program. I don't know of them as being a national powerhouse, that's for sure. But listen, anytime a Florida team goes outside the state and beats someone from another state, it is always a good thing. So UCF were down. I think it was 25-5 at one point and scored 3 straight converted tries to win it 26-25. So congrats to the UCF Knights for winning that. Charlie's got some pictures there of the team celebrating in Houston. That was played at.
This is we're gonna play a little interview done by Alex Goff from the Goff Rugby Report.
Yeah, play it.
Where we have these kids talking about
Alex Goff. Alex Goff does a great job of covering all things college rugby. You can follow him on Twitter.
Let's have a listen.
You turn the sound up, Charlie. I can barely hear it.
Oh.
Well, I can hear them talking, but I can't hear what they're saying. So anyway.
Oh, well.
Hey, it's all good. Listen, UCF, they had their little spell there under another former TFRO guest of ours, Jason Granich, where they won back-to-back national championships.
Yeah, I'm sorry about the audio.
That's okay. Obviously, Florida college rugby was a mess last year because none of the colleges would let the teams play under the college names. They played as the U23s last year, won by Palm Beach U23, otherwise known as FAU. So that'll get going again in January. So that'll be one of our great competitions to watch. UCF, will this propel them to a state title as well? I don't know. I know USF and FAU especially may have something to say about that, and I'm sure we'll have another team or two come out of the woodwork as underdogs and perhaps make a run for it. So great to see that from UCF on the road in Texas. Speaking of being on the road, in Argentina, another former guest. Did I say that right, Charlie?
Argentina.
Another former guest on the pod, Marcus Young, former Key Biscayne player who went on he did some stuff with 404 in Atlanta, was trying to make rugby ATL, and then ended up going back to his native Argentina, is playing top-level rugby in Argentina. Charlie, maybe you can explain to us what Marcus Young did this weekend, being our South American correspondent that you are.
Thank you. Well, actually, he started playing this year in the first team of the club is called Cuba. They play in the top 12 in Buenos Aires. That's like the highest level rugby.
Yeah,
he's been playing pretty much all year long. And they played against SIC, which is another very well-known team over there that typically is always up there. And it was a close game. I think it was 10-9. But it was, this kid, pretty amazing year he has had, because remember these teams in Argentina, these like first division teams, they have like at least 5 or 6 teams that compete on a regular basis under the first division of, I'm talking about men's teams. So to be in the first team, it's really an accomplishment.
No, it's a proper rugby culture down there with clubs.
Oh man, they played 20,000 people. You should see the videos of people.
Wow. So I'm sure. Where can people find that online, Charlie, if they want to look it up?
Just go to YouTube, I guess. I mean, to be honest, I don't have that information right here.
It's all right. Listen.
Listen, it was funny because I congratulated him on WhatsApp, and then I got a message back from him like 5 a.m. So I guess he was coming back from the festivities at that time.
There you go. National champion. Good to see Marcos. We'll see if he continues to stick down there. What position he was playing, Charlie? I know he was more of a
he's playing wing 14.
He was playing wing for Cuba.
Yeah.
So congratulations to Cuba and any associated fans of theirs in Florida.
They're a bunch here for sure.
No sevens this weekend. We're mentioning sevens. We will talk about. Congrats to Life. We forgot to mention Life and our 3 members of the team from Florida: Sarah Barsoom, Emma Diaz, and Aurora, whose last name I can't remember, from Wellington. But congrats.
We didn't do that last week.
No, they won the semifinal last week, wasn't it?
Okay.
And then they won the whole thing. I think we did it between the two. Either way, they won the whole thing, so that was great. And then, we were talking about the Wantlin sisters, Alex Wantlin. She was supposed to join the sevens system, the sevens set up in California sometimes this month. Maybe if Bert Wantlin is listening, he can give us an update on when she's heading out to Chula Vista.
That's when we had her
on we had our ladies episode. We need to do another one of it at some point soon.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We're just waiting for.
All right. Let's get to work here, Charlie. We've got 45 minutes to bang through this. Now we have a ton of questions we sort of sent out to the group here. We probably won't get to all of them, but we have some are more important than others about the state of youth rugby in the state.
Well, shall we bring in the guests?
Let's bring them in. As we do that, Charlie, let's talk about. It's going to be focused on U19s, obviously the biggest focus of youth rugby in Florida and around the country. We do have 9 U19s. Is that right? This time, Charlie, boys teams.
Yes. From last year, Sarasota could not make it.
Sarasota are out. They do have some players, though. I guess they're playing sort of a scrimmage.
Yeah.
Well, they did yesterday. Was it yesterday or coming up this weekend? I can't remember
this coming weekend, there's a Wellington thing.
Yeah, I think Sarasota are sort of putting together something with some players from other teams they're trying to get together. But yeah, only 9 teams this year. Orlando were out last year, I assume, due to the pandemic, but have not returned this year. So no Orlando, which is a shame. Being one of the biggest
I did hear that. I think that they have like a few players, but they just couldn't commit to the season with.
That's disappointing.
Small roster. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Because
one of the 4 biggest metropolitan areas in the country, and the other 3 are represented reasonably well with Jacksonville, Tampa, and Miami, Fort Lauderdale. Although, Miami, Fort Lauderdale could have another team at least, I think.
Absolutely.
Disappointing that Orlando is not participating. Let's bring in our guests, Charlie. Who we got? Who showed up?
Okay, yeah, because let's bring in Gavin McLeavely, Mr. Gavin McLeavely.
Gavin's here. We have to be done by 8 o'clock, Gavin. So don't talk for too much. Don't talk.
Right.
Yeah. If you can, don't even talk at all. Okay.
That's going to be impossible. That's impossible. Gavin McLeavely from Okapi Rugby, we should say.
Okay. We have Ale Nino from Key Biscayne. Hi, Ale.
Ale Nino from Key Biscayne. Hi, Ale.
How are you?
Coach from the U19s, and Colin Odell from the Hammerheads.
Who's muted. There he is.
No,
Colin, say hi so we know you're alive.
Hi.
Okay.
Colin, how we doing, mate? So we invited a few more people. We'll see. I know Chris Vassell may stroll in about 15 minutes.
Yeah.
That's probably enough for him. Half hour Chris Vassell is enough for anybody.
Yeah.
He likes it.
He told us he was going to be late. He has this work thing going on Sundays or something. All right. So we've got Okapi, the biggest club in Florida, represented. Key Biscayne, I think, up there in the top 3 as well, if not number 2, numbers-wise.
I don't know if Key Biscayne wants to dispute that number.
I'm sure Ale will give us maybe he doesn't know the answer of how many total kids Key Biscayne has. Maybe he does.
170.
170,
Gavin.
170.
Gavin, can you beat that, Gavin?
I don't know. You need to speak to Charlie. The best person to speak to for that is Maria. She would know. She runs this place now at this point, so she would know better. But we must be around about there. It must be close.
Key Biscayne are the winners. I'm declaring them the winners for now. Until I find out otherwise, Key Biscayne is the biggest club in Florida. All right, let's start with Gavin. Gavin, you've been around Florida youth rugby for a while now. How many years now?
Oh God, that's a tough one. Probably close to 10 years, I guess. I don't know. No, like 9. Yeah, like 9 years. So I think I did West Pines for a year or two, and then I did Western, and then West Pines, and then started Okapi. So like 9 years, I guess.
So a good chunk of the existence of Florida youth rugby. We said what, Charlie? Started. When did Charlie? 09 it started. We said somewhere around there, right?
Yes, 09.
So Gavin's been around for most of it. Gavin, let's open with this question. How would you consider the state of youth rugby in Florida at the moment compared to the past years? How are we doing? How's Florida youth rugby doing?
I don't know. I feel like it stagnates sometimes. I certainly get frustrated with it. I mean, I don't want to be doom and gloom. I think, generally, at least with Key Biscayne and Okapi and Wellington and Boca, it's pretty, it gets going in the right direction. But I see once you kind of go north, it's sort of just, it's up and down a little bit unstable. Orlando, for example, it doesn't make any sense. Such a big city like that can't pull together, 23 kids to play under 19. I mean, it makes no sense. I mean, just physically, how does that happen? I get a little bit upset when the North, and this is not bashing the North, it's just for whatever reason they haven't got the people on the ground. Maybe my big thing is you've got to dedicate some time to it, right? Everyone's got their jobs and they've got their lives and all of that, but at some point you all have to chip in and get it done. I think a lot of the time, and I think I saw this when we first started doing youth rugby, when my kids started getting to that sort of 7, 8, 9 years old, and I said, okay, let me get involved. I saw a lot of coaches trying to manage everything, just trying to do everything themselves, trying to organize kit and coach the kids and manage their mum and dad, and and sort of organize logistics, and you just drown, and then you get fed up and you walk away from it, I presume. I've attempted to walk away a couple of times just because I was tired, and then okay, just give this piece of work that's stressing me out to somebody else, and then you can good, I can do this again now because I've got some time. I think that's maybe that's the reason. I don't know, but it seems like we just need to have more of a. I think Wellington did this. Wellington copied a lot of our structure freely. We sort of openly gave that, hey, call me anytime and let me know what you need. And we kind of copied a few things from Key Biscayne because they've got the youth part of it down. Like, the 8, 9, 10 to 12-year-olds, they've crushed that for years. So we sort of stole that a little bit, and then added our middle school and high school bit in, which I think we've done really well with. So I don't know. I think that's maybe the solution, just getting more hands on deck. I think we're at 23 coaches now, and an equal amount of team managers, or team moms, whatever you want to call them. There's a couple of dads that do that too. And then the administration stuff. I've started to just offload it as much as I can. I know Mariano wouldn't let his hands off of everything at one point, and me and Matt Hayden had to sort of say, listen, this is how we think we should do it, because you're doing everything and you're going to get upset with yourself at some point because you're doing too much. So let's start giving the workload. And we did, and the parents and coaches reacted well to it. And then they realized that, hey, we need more people to do this. So they started recruiting in that kind of aspect as well.
Yeah, no, for sure. The numbers is what, 23 coaches. Any club will be happy to have that. Will be ecstatic, I think. It starts with the old boys, right? Looking to give back. I think that's where the successful clubs, not just the old boys that have played for those teams, but the old boys whose playing careers you're never going to stop playing, but those that have come to a close and want to help out elsewhere, rather than just sort of stand back and walk away from rugby. This is where you can really continue to have you seen a good amount of that with the Okapi? I mean, how many of those coaches are former players? And
most of them. Yeah, most of the lads that are helping out coaching, they're all former players on one level or another. Some of them hadn't played in 20 years, and they turned up and said, I'll chip in. We got two new gents that came in, and they're just very inexperienced in the coaching side of things. But they landed in Western area, and they found a couple of mutual friends in the club. And they said, "Oh, I'll turn up." And all it is, we incentivized them with a barbecue, with a parrilla, and they showed up, and we poured some wine down their neck, and then the next day they were coaching. Easy job. So if they're Argentine, it's really easy. Give them some meat and some red wine, and they roll over.
Totally correct. Totally correct. Parrilla makes magic.
Exactly.
Well, yeah. I mean, let's talk about that while we're on that subject. The subject of foreign influence versus American influence. Ale was moved to you real quick. Key Biscayne, very heavily foreign influenced club.
Yes.
How has Key Biscayne kept things going? And how is Key Biscayne as a program doing now?
I guess I think we're in the same position as Gavin. We have a bunch of RGs and other country players that they come to the island, they see rugby, they love rugby, and consequently they want to try and instill the learnings, the values, and the wonderful sport that rugby is to their kids. At the end of the day, that's what we're doing. It's like we are passing the torch from what was taught to us to our kids, because we believe in those values and we believe that makes you a better person and a better professional. The one thing we're seeing is that, and different than probably the rest of the world, is I think we have a problem in the fact that the schools not only don't promote it, probably shy away from rugby. We have tried in a couple of schools, and unfortunately, we're not being successful, period. They don't understand our sport. They don't understand. They want to continue, the American way, which is you have a sport for every 3 months, and they don't give us a chance. And that's where, I wish I had the secret sauce, but we have tried many times personally and giving sessions. And I can tell you, rugby in Key Biscayne is the second sport by numbers, and we always have to fight for commitment for the pitch. As a matter of fact, we no longer have a grass pitch because they decided to make some constructions and we lost it. And we are, we have to fight and beg and plead so that we can get the necessary space so that the kids can play. And one of the things I love from rugby is that we are a very inclusive sport. Everybody's so welcome to play rugby, and I'm sure that Gavin does the same, Gabi. And all of a sudden, kids that didn't participate in any American sport start practicing, and they're pretty good, and some are successful.
Yeah. No, I mean, I always have a great story. When I interviewed at the current school that I work at, North Broward Prep, which used to have a rugby program, thanks to a dean there, who's also named Dean, funnily enough, who was a rugby player for Boca, who got the program going there. Chris Ream helped out while his son, I think, was attending there as well. But then once they left, the program collapsed. When I interviewed there, I said, "Oh man, I'd love to get rugby going here." And my current boss, she said, "Well, I'm so glad we don't have rugby anymore. There were so many injuries, etc." They're playing on a turf pitch, but that's the kind of attitude I think a lot of these schools have, is that, this is a sport where I think a lot of Americans don't understand it and aren't willing to understand it, that it's nowhere near as violent as football, nowhere near as many injuries if it's taught correctly, especially, tackling technique. But yeah, I think being down here in Florida, one of the problems has been getting into schools. I know elsewhere in the country, especially with the private schools and the Jesuit schools, for example, have really embraced it around the country. It just seems here, other than Cardinal Gibbons, it really hasn't caught on. One question I have for you, Ale, I think I asked Charlie this question a couple of weeks ago. What percentage of your team is from Key Biscayne? Are there any players from Miami that come down?
Very few every year. We had a bunch, I would say, 4 or 5 years ago, of French kids.
Right.
And unfortunately, they left. I think the families left back for France, and we lost them. And those were kids that they were coming from Miami Beach. We have a couple of kids that they came from South Miami, and but then either they graduated or pandemic hurt us because they weren't, they were concerned about practicing, and consequently they took the year off. And once you take a year off at U19 level, it's very hard to come back, because once you learn that you don't like getting hit, you probably don't come back. So But we do have kids that obviously have the commitment, and those are the ones that we probably cherish the most, because they come from far away and they practice from 7 to 9:30, and then they go back and they come happy, and that's what it's all about. But that's a fight. It's a constant, we have to convince them that this is great and that they're gonna have fun, and that it's all about them and the team and learning and playing and having friends from other clubs, having the tercer tiempos, which I think it's something really, really important that sometimes, depending on the clubs, we lack. And it would be great to have it, because I think that's where you build the spirit.
No, that big. Charlie and I always talk about the culture of the game and how some Americans especially don't get it. But once you're in it, right, it's hard. You fall in love with it. If you're open to learning about rugby, and that it's more than just what happens on the field. It's one of those sports that I think people just they fall in love with, and it's there you hope for the rest of their lives. I know some of the Americans it doesn't, but Charlie, maybe you can jump in with the Miami side of things. Miami RFC, I know you were involved on the youth side of things with them for a while. To have just the one club in a county with a population the size of Miami-Dade is just astounding to me. I mean, I know you've been talking to some people with Miami as of late, but Charlie, what are your thoughts on what happened with Miami and why that kind of fell apart, and what we can learn from that?
I'll get right to that, but I just wanted to say something. I've been wondering if, like, when Alice says that he's been unsuccessful going to the schools and explaining, I'm under the impression that we are not explaining rugby properly. There's something we're not doing right in the approach, or maybe who we approach, or how, or what exactly we're talking about. Because I've had this thought lately, that if rugby is such a great sport, how come we don't have an excess of kids like running to play rugby, right? So it just made me think we really have to work on that, and how we present rugby. Because of course, if you get a foot, and when Chris shows up, he was talking to me last week about that, and they were pretty successful in going into the schools in the Palm Beach area. So he'll have something to say about that. But I'm under the impression that we are probably not, taking the right approach.
Can I?
Yes.
Can I jump in on that, Wally? Just real briefly. What we did recently, or the last couple of years, is we've gone in. I can't remember the name of the day, but when the parents go in and talk to their kids about the job that they do.
Yeah.
Career day. Yeah.
Career day, thank you. Yeah. So I do that. So they literally, Okapi just shoves me in the door of these random elementary schools and just says, "Hey, go and pretend like you're a parent of one of these kids." Honestly, that's what I've done it 3 times, 4 times in the local schools around Western. And I show up, and my kids aren't necessarily, my kids are middle school and high school now. But they send me, because all of the kids go, the little guys, they all go to these, Indian Trace Elementary and all of that.
Yeah.
And they push me in there, and I show it with there's a very nice video which sort of shows the basics of rugby, what it is, and it's very nicely done. It's like cartoon written while there's someone voiceovering it and it's from the English RFU. So I use a piece of that, and I just literally the kids rotate around the class that I'm in. All the different classes they come in. I give them a little 15-minute speech, throw the ball around for 5 minutes, and distribute a bunch of flyers. And every time we do that, we have 10 new kids that turn up in the under 10s or under 12.
Are you advocating for people to go and pretend to be parents of kids, which they are not?
It works. It works. I mean, there's obviously parents that are in the rugby club, and they either work at that school. One of them was a receptionist, one of them was actually a teacher, and now they're those kids are now high school players or whatever. But yeah, that's what we do, and it works. And then the other one is making a relationship with the local football team. So Cypress Bay, the local high school. Well, this past year we got in with them.
Don't talk to Charlie about football players playing rugby, Gavin.
Yeah, we didn't.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
We didn't get in. 6 of our guys went and played for the football team this year, including Keaton, my eldest son, and from that we've gotten a handful of kids that are trying it out this year. You know, we've got 38, I think, in the under-19s team this year.
Awesome.
Okay, Ross, just to answer quickly your question about Miami. Basically, what happened in Miami that had like a really good peak in the year 2012-13, around there. It was just a case of like the people running the program for whatever reason left, you know, and you just had also a huge chunk of kids exiting, you know, the high school program, and it sort of fell apart because it just, you have to have that sort of magic. Gavin knows what I'm talking about, like a bunch of people working in, you know, in sync to get things done, you know, and it just didn't happen, and it fizzled out basically.
No, it's 100% bodies on the ground, right? It's having Gavin, you apparently have 26 coaches. A source is telling me, an unnamed source tells me you have 26 coaches and 196 players, but that includes the men. So I'm going to say it's a tie. It's a tie between you and a coach.
Yeah, if we've got 20-something guys, that takes it down to about 100. We'll call it a 1-1 draw for us in Key Biscayne.
Let's go talk to Colin here. It looks like he's in a hostage video with his lighting situation there, but I won't hold it against him. Now, obviously, Naples, going back to the beginning of the high school rugby situation in Florida, were one of the most successful teams. Had a little bit of a down period. Now have come back again. Colin, tell us a bit about yourself and just sort of how Naples is looking at the moment. I know they've sort of had bits and pieces coming together. I know you've had sort of Fort Myers middle school stuff and other sort of sporadic youth, younger than U19s. But fill us in on how Naples is doing. Oh, sorry, Southwest Florida is doing it.
So I started playing in 2014 for them when I was in high school, which was a good year for us. Went to state semis, I believe. And then after that, pretty bad for a couple of years. And then my senior year, we started winning again, and we've been pretty 50-50 since then. We did join up. It's now Southwest Florida Hammerheads. JR and a couple guys, I don't know if you know them, they started up the middle school, the Stars program in Fort Myers.
Yes.
And they had a couple kids in high school who wanted to play. And so we always kind of wanted to merge with the Hammerheads instead of being Naples Bears, Naples Hammerheads. It should just be one Naples team.
Makes sense.
So we'll have that, just the one as a Hammerheads. So after I stopped playing, I went to college, and I was kind of helping out here and there. I was kind of on and off like 2019, and then I went to play rugby league in Australia. When I came back, I kind of took it on.
Terrible sport.
Ross loves rugby league.
Colin's top man, Colin.
No, but Colin brought up a great point that Charlie and I always talk about, is having that connection between the youth. We've seen clubs, I should say, that where the youth program and the adult program have sort of been on two separate entities. Boca, I know, comes up as a great example just because I have connections with them, where for the longest time there were two separate entities. Now they're coming together and seeing the success. You know, Akapi's always been one thing, Key Biscayne's always been one thing. Colin, talk about some of the things you see on the positive side of things from joining up with the men.
Yeah, so it's definitely great because now we have kids kind of feeding up once they graduate. If they're not going to college, or if they're going to college locally, they just feed up, play for the men's club. And it's also good because we practice right before the men. And so Some of the men come out early and they join in the drills, give kids little pointers here and there. And then if we have kids who want some extra work after practice, they stay and do the warm-up with the men. And it's been beneficial, I think, for both. We get to kind of go against each other every once in a while. Go ahead.
That's definitely the way to do it. Go ahead,
Colin, Colin, you also play on the same field, right?
Yeah. So we do. We're able to kind of split the field time. We try to make it so like there's one game in the morning, one right after, and then we practice in the same field. Yeah, obviously. So it's been good. Yeah. Definitely for us, the field space isn't a problem. We have multiple fields. We have some in Naples, some in Estero. We have the Stars facility.
Lucky you guys.
Obviously, I think for those who have played at Veterans Park in Naples, that's definitely the best field that we can get. That grass is immaculate.
Yeah, right. Nice.
But we do have a lot of options, so that's not a problem for us.
Yeah, having that field space is a big thing.
Yeah, our biggest issue, I'd say, is the football coaches not liking us, and we're just starting to get on their good side. And then we had Cal, who's our fullback and also the starting running back at a high school, tear his ACL at a sevens tournament, and now all the other football players that were on his team, the coaches are like, "You're done. You're not playing rugby." So yeah, it's been a struggle with that, and also I feel like COVID kind of shut down us going into schools to talk to kids in there. So it's been all right. We've got decent numbers this year, maybe 25 to 30. So it's enough, but could always use more,
No, I mean, listen, I think the success of Cardinal Gibbons should be a great example to some of these other football coaches. You're going to have the odd injuries here and there, of course, but you're also going to have just the physicality they learn from rugby, the tackling technique, and it's a short season, right? The fact that Cardinal Gibbons has been such a success on both the rugby and the football fields. I was just trying to see when they're playing their state championship.
Thursday.
Oh, this Thursday, is it coming?
Yes.
Yeah.
Football players improve a lot by playing rugby. Their tackling gets a lot better. Their vision gets a lot better.
Just seeing space, right? I think space is a big thing in bringing that from rugby to football. If you have that ability to see space well, it's going to translate very well from the rugby field, I think, to the football field. Let's go to some off the field stuff. Gavin, I'm going to ask you this question first. Who's in charge of Florida Youth Rugby? Is there a board? This is a question that some people don't ask me, and I don't know the answer to it.
So, from my understanding, is
that's a great way to start it.
That's not a good way to start.
Which could mean
it may have changed between the start of this podcast and now. So go ahead.
This is my version of what I think happened. No, from what I understand, we as the administrators of each club run rugby in Florida, and then we hire Evan in this case, that he kind of does the day-to-day work, and then there's a board of directors that kind of vote. From what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, that's pretty much how it is. So I think a lot of it is in our hands, and I think a lot of us don't realize that Evan is there to work for us, and I think he would probably agree with that statement, right?
Well, listen, it is true what you say, that it's actually the clubs that should run the union, but the board of directors that you mentioned, if you go to the website, the little information that is there for the FRYU, you have these people that are non-existent anymore. You have Matthew Hayden, Peter Dobson, Michael Stone from 2015-16. So there is a little bit. It's not very tidy. Let's put it that way. From the administrative point of view, there's no way to go and see the budget. For example, do you know what the budget of the union is? Have you seen it?
I might have only seen the adult one because I do.
Okay,
so I kind of confuse the two conversations.
I don't know if any of the other guys have seen. And I mentioned the budget. I don't, Ali, have you seen it, or Colin? Are you aware of the budget? Because the budget for our union is basically, it's like the blueprint of this is what we want to do, right? If we're going to spend money, doing this one thing, let's say all-star programs or coaching, training, or whatever you decide to do, it's going to be reflected in the budget. The fact that you're not even aware of the budget, for me, it's a little bit concerning, This thing should be transparent. Everybody should be able to go to the website and see the budget, see who's in charge. That is not happening, and we've had some problems on the adult side. Some of the stuff, it's much more organized for sure, but these are things that need to be kept, I think, straightforward and clear and transparent for everybody, not just for you guys, for the community. I do a lot of work in that sense and showing stuff, promoting, as you know, through my media empire, put it some way.
It's an empire, Charlie. You're good.
But I think it's important because it's like the base, okay, this is the union. I'm always asking, hey, who should I call to find out something from the union? I mean, I have to end up always calling Evan, and he's not the elected representative. He's he does, as you say, all like the groundwork and a very important piece in how this works. But I don't know who to call to ask a question about policy or what are we doing. So that's why the question came up when we were preparing this.
Yeah, I think it's a little unclear. I think I'm not sure if Gavin can attest to this, but I think teams moving away, unions moving away from sort of, not moving away from it, but the academies coming through. I'm hoping that if we do get an MLR team here, that the academies, which I've seen so strong in other states, we're starting to see Jaguars kind of work a little bit towards it. We've seen other things come and gone as well, but I think the union, I think, it's just got to be there to kind of make sure everybody's just to be the sort of mediator, right? To make sure everybody's kind of with this playoff situation. Charlie and I have talked about this. Gavin, what are your thoughts? Well, we'll go around the table here.
Let me bring in Chris Vassell, that has been there finally. Hi, Chris.
Hey guys, what's happening?
Hey mate, good to see you, Chris Vassell from Boca Raton.
Thanks for coming, Chris.
I'm going to skip we'll go back to the playoff things in a second, because I know we got 15 minutes or so here left. I want to go to the female side of things. We've got 4 teams here, neither of which have girls rugby teams, full teams. I know we've seen sporadic individuals come through playing with the boys until they have to go split off. Obviously Sarah Barsoom being a great example of that. But let's talk about girls rugby. You start with Gavin and Okapi. Where's the struggle been with you and the girls side of things? And then we'll go around the table.
So there's a few things there. There's firstly, some of the coaches are genuinely just not comfortable coaching little girls. I think that's probably the biggest one in our club. Being in that situation of potentially putting yourself at danger where you're grabbing hold of a kid and sort of, okay, no, you're going to move your body this way and that kind of thing. I think that's maybe the first thing. Not for me personally, but I know that there's a few coaches that brought that up. And plus on top of that, I don't know if the timing was right, but we ended up getting field hockey in Western. So the minute that field hockey turned up, and it obviously was for that time, it was moms of rugby boys that had little girls, and they were like, well, we'll make a field hockey team. And so there's a bunch of the moms made a field hockey, and that's where that kind of I guess that's where the numbers went. If there was any rugby girl that came to us, maybe you might find 1 or 2 that would want to be involved, and then they would end up playing field hockey anyway, because that was where the majority of the girls were. But yeah, I mean, I'm all about it. I'm getting a fair amount of abuse from the female rugby organizations within Florida because I don't have a team. You're laughing, but I've literally
it's not. It's not just you though. It's as I said, the 4 teams here. None of them have a girls team.
Yeah,
so it's not just you. I think just as a copy as being the biggest,
right?
May get some abuse just because of that.
Yeah, and one of my it's a good point to touch on. I feel like we've been sort of, especially in the debates that I've had recently, it's basically some people saying to me, well, you're holding rugby back in Florida. Biggest rugby club in Florida, how are we holding it back?
Yeah.
You can't argue with that. There's no argument to that. So I'm an ally for women's rugby. If anyone doubts that, they can look at my Instagram page and look back for years of the promotion that I've done for it, and working personally with, women like Naya Tapper with the U.S. national team. She literally works with us in my organization at ASM Scholarships, promoting women's rugby. So I've taken offense to that recently, and but I will keep advocating for it. But I will say that I'm an ally, and I'm literally getting to the point where I may not be an ally because of the way that it's been approached. So it needs to be approached a little bit differently, I think.
No, I think if somebody stepped up and said, hey, we want, if the 3 women came to you and said, we want to start an Okapi women's girls rugby program, you'd be up for it.
Me personally, yeah, absolutely. Just a case of voting and getting everyone else on board.
Yeah. Ale, how about Key Biscayne? Obviously, a small community. So the number of girls might not be there, but have you guys been approached about doing it? And where have you guys tried? I know you've had a few here and there.
We have always been inclusive, and we, as a matter of fact, have a girl playing in the U16.
Great.
That has a great tackling technique. She comes from Brazil. She's very disciplined. She has been part and getting along with the boys. She's part of the team, and we have always been open. I think we have the same problem Gavin has mentioned, which is we have a very strong hockey team in Key Biscayne that travels to California once a year. A couple of players have been selected to represent the United States in junior national tournaments. there is two persons that from Key Biscayne that are going to the youth World Championship,
National tournament,
representing the United States. So you cannot compete against that because, and I think that this is a British tradition, right? You know,
Yes.
I myself, we are four. The three boys played rugby. The girl played hockey. Totally fine, totally happy. She had her friends. We had our friends, and we were in the same club. But it was normally, normally no. Girls used to play field hockey, and boys would play rugby. But as Javi said, we are very open. We would be happy to have. I think it's going to be a struggle. Only because if you ask, the girls are very happy playing hockey.
Yes. Colin, how about Naples side of things? Now, we've had some very successful rugby players come from the Naples area on the women's side of things. Obviously didn't play for, a team there, but seemed to found their way, to success. Yeah. But have Naples Southwest Florida, the Hammerheads brought it up?
So we always have a couple girls that train with right now there's a couple that train with the men. We have a couple training with the high school team. But it's really just about having somebody take the lead and just organize it, I feel like if we had somebody that really tried, we might be able to scrape some girls together. But it's tough. I mean, right now we're at the point where we don't have enough to where they can train on their own. But we've got a couple, so they're with the men. But at the high school level, it's tough when you get into contact and whatnot with kids that age. So it's difficult, man.
No, I hear you, Chris. Finally on the girls' side of things, chip in from the Boca point of view.
Hey guys, how are you? So on our end, we want to start it. The problem is we don't have field spaces, one, and two, coaching, right? As Gavin said, the biggest thing is the coaching. Some guys aren't comfortable with it as of yet. I'm for it. I would love to have time to do it, but we just don't have the space as of yet. And the one thing is, like the women's teams around here, if we can get some of those girls to jump on board, or those women to jump on board and want to be coaches, then that will help us out, and we can figure out offsetting the time. So instead of Tuesday, Thursday, then we'll do Wednesday, Friday, or Monday, Wednesday for them, to do it. But we just need to get women coaching to do it, and the few that we've asked or that are in our area, they just don't have time for it because they're starting their families or businesses or things like that.
Right.
So we'd love to do it, like with Sarah was with us, coached her all the way up to when she had to leave at U14s at the end of that. And then she went on and joined Simon and Boynton, and that was it with wanting to start it. And I know Sean Borman tried a while back when we first started Boca Bucks 5-6 years ago, the incision of it, and inception of it, and it just didn't work. Just timing and coaching. That's our biggest thing. But we are all for it, and if we can do it, I think we should push it and try to do it ASAP.
Well, let's stick with you, Chris. The last sort of main question I want to sort of go over is sort of encapsulating.
Ross, sorry.
Go ahead, John.
If I may add quickly, unfortunately, Alan Lawson from Wellington, he must have had some problem. He didn't show up because Wellington is one of the other teams that has had, actually teams. And
it would be nice to ask him how they've done so well. And
my understanding is that right now they actually have a high school team, like a bunch of girls. So it would have been nice to know how does that happen, because to some extent it seems that as these guys were talking, you just don't have a bunch of girls showing up. We want to play rugby, right. So it's already hard.
So sorry, Charlie. Like Wellington, I know they have Sean, who's coaching the women's up there, and he and Mark as well. I forgot his last name, but Morgan's father, right?
Okay.
So they go out there, and they have those coaches that are just strictly going out recruiting girls to play rugby. So on our end, I can vouch for us. We're just focusing on building the youth boys up, and we have one girl that's playing right now, Leia, who's playing on the U14s, and she's U12s, and she's doing a great job out there. But she wishes there were more teams too as well. But I know they have dedicated coaches just going out there recruiting right now.
Okay.
No, we've seen girls succeed, coming from clubs that don't have teams. So hopefully that continues. I'm just going to throw this one out to everybody before we go here. How can Florida youth rugby get better? Where do we need to get better? Whether it's support from the union or, not getting extra fields and getting more coaches, but how can we help ourselves be better? And where can the union help us out if whoever wants to jump in?
If I could jump in, Chris here.
Yeah, go, Chris.
I believe, from the conversation earlier that I heard you guys while I was driving here, is that we're not out in the public. We're not visual enough. There's nothing that really stands out that says, oh, wow, look at rugby, because everyone now is aesthetically love to see football. They love to see a star or someone out there. But for Florida, what we need to do, like Gavin's doing out there, going with those cartoon snips and really trying to figure out how we can get on that social media side and do some things that people can say, oh, I can identify with that guy. I want to be around those guys. Oh, those guys look good. So we're not out there more in the public eyes, in a sense, just to let it know. Because we're here, we're a small community, as you can tell. Look at the guys that are here, the teams that are here, but we're only in that small bubble. So there's a whole demographic that we need to go out and get that footprint into. And the only way to do it, I believe, is having some kind of spokesperson that goes into these schools, going into communities, being on fundraisers that do things that's on a level that everyone can see here in Florida. And I think will drum up more auditory cues and say, oh, rugby, because that's, to answer your question earlier, Charlie and Ross, I went into, not just me, but the Palm Beach schools, and went in there and just hammering for 6 years, bringing flyers, telling what we're doing, showing videos of games. And Gavin, can you send me that cartoon link so I can also?
I just put it onto the Facebook underneath the video of what's going on now.
Those things, and we went in there and just had to keep selling until the coaches were tired of us, and we actually showed and start doing clinics, and they're like, okay. And then the kids themselves that come back that weren't starters, then literally 6 months later became starters because they're in shape, they tackle well, and they're dominant on the field because of their confidence through rugby. So those are things that we need to highlight more for us as a group. And I think people will buy in, and they are starting to buy in now, but we just need to be more flooding the communities even more.
Yeah, 100%. Anybody else, Gavin? Just how can we take that next step here?
One of the things that always comes up in conversation when I'm doing my sort of day job, right, with the scholarship company and the sports management group, I'll be explaining to, say, a 17-year-old South African kid and their family, why would I be able to get a scholarship to an American university to play rugby? And it goes like this. I use this. There's 4 or 5 youth teams in Florida, right? But there's 26 college teams that play rugby in Florida. So that's 4 youth teams supplying rugby players for 26 colleges. It's an easy sell for me. I'm using it as a selling point to these kids in South Africa that play rugby here, right? But that's the problem. You've got 4 youth teams or 5 youth teams. The basically the people that are sitting right here, and maybe Wellington and 1 or 2 others.
Yeah, when you say youth, it's people that have below U19s, you mean?
Exactly. Well, yeah, I'm talking 14 and below. Now, if I take that 17-year-old kid that's been playing in South Africa or England or New Zealand from the age of 7 years old, that's got 10 years experience, and then the average Florida rugby player, if there's 9 teams this season in the under-19s. Yeah. So that kid is probably playing for a year or 2. For the most part. So when they get to at the freshman year in university, there's an American kid standing next to a South African kid that just got off the boat, right? Next to each other. One's got 2 years experience and the other one's got 10 years experience. Who's going to get the scholarship money?
Exactly.
Yeah. The South African kid. So what we need to do, I think, is do what Key Biscayne, and this is why Okapi kind of focused on youth in the beginning and grow up rather than top down, is get 150 kids at the under 12 level, and then then the pyramid is going this way. Right now, our pyramid's like this.
Yeah,
it's the wrong way. It's the wrong way around. And if we build from the bottom, then we have this better pyramid, and the kids will drop out as it gets more competitive. and you know it gets more difficult, say. But that's how we want it, right? Everybody plays, and now we've got a bunch of kids at Okapi that they might not be superstar players, but they're the kids that are going to end up coaching in 20 years from now, are probably my grandchildren, right?
Gavin and everyone else, sorry to interject again. So one thing I noticed, so on CBS, a local area, CBS here in Fort Lauderdale, or NBC, they were highlighting youth soccer. Mm-hmm. So they had a news anchor guy whose daughter was playing soccer, and all he was doing is blasting soccer, which is good. But that's the things that, and that's the things that we need to do is probably maybe funnel into those channels and say, hey, we have a playoff of this high school or these local teams that are playing in rugby, and here Charlie makes a video, send it to them, and they minimize their work. It's already edited, and then boom, they'll just use those roles, and it's on the news station. And like Gavin said, how many people are going to listen or watch? Maybe a few. Will we get them? I don't know, but those are the avenues we need to start. Those are the thought process we need to start thinking right now.
For sure. Colin, Ale, any thoughts on just how we can improve things here in Florida?
As I said at the beginning, I think that if we can convince schools to make it an elective sport, I can tell you in at least the countries I have traveled for rugby, and in Argentina, the schools feed the clubs, the club feeds the unions feed the national team. So at the end of the day, I think it works. It has worked in other countries. And if we could convince schools to make it an elective sport, I think then everybody's going to be very, very happy, because all of us are going to get the benefit of schools feeding us kids.
Yeah, no, 100%. Colin?
I think kind of bigger picture, the problem in Florida is that we've got all these college rugby teams. None of them give scholarships. So Florida's got some of the best, if not the best, athletes in the country. They're all working to either play professionally or get the school paid for in whatever sport they're playing. So I think if you give them something to work for, if you say, hey, come out, play rugby, you can get your school paid for doing this, and it's just much easier because, obviously it is. If there were to be a lot of schools giving out scholarships, it's not as many players. And for elite athletes in America, when they do start playing rugby, they do well. Perry Baker, Carl Niles, they weren't the best football players, but they're some of the best sevens players in the world, So I think just give them something to work for, and we'll start getting better athletes, and they'll attract others,
Yeah, it's a shame, to see the rugby talent that leaves this state and goes to colleges elsewhere, whether it be Life or Kutztown or Queens or, mostly East Coast. But, it'd be amazing if even one college would step up. They'd obviously be ahead of everybody else very quickly if they did.
Yeah.
But
well, look what UCF just did. It was pretty good.
Cool. Yeah, we talked about that at the start. Listen, UCF, one of the strongest programs on the men's and women's side, especially over the years. They seem to be getting it right. I don't know how many. As FAU, I know from FAU, we give out small stuff, but nothing that's ever going to cover, even
not a full ride.
No, not even a tenth of a full ride.
That's really one of the things with the scholarship stuff. Like for example, with UCF, there's one client of mine. I think he played for the Czech Republic national team, which he's a decent player, and he's there. I don't know if he's still in. This was like 3 years ago we got him in that school, but I presume he's still there. I haven't spoken to him recently, but there are opportunities because these kids from abroad are looking at it as simply an opportunity to be in America, right, and get their education here. So it's not always necessarily the athletic scholarship. If they're a smart kid, there's a lot of schools like NCAA Division III schools don't give athletic scholarships. Correct. Ivy League schools don't give athletic scholarships. All of your scholarship for those two schools, the rules in those divisions are you have to get academic scholarship only, but if you're good at the sport, it's a foot in the door. It's something else on your resume. So, with Nico Zaramera, he's at Dartmouth playing rugby, and his scholarship is all academic. The kid's a genius. He's like a 4.7 GPA or something, and he's playing in a phenomenal rugby university in a great environment. He's loved it. He was home just last week. I guess he's home for the holidays, and he's really enjoying his time up there. So there's not just the athletic scholarship side of things. It's looking for the opportunities and just finding your niche. And if those schools coaches can work closer with the admissions teams, that's where you'll get some real good traction. Because I've worked with a lot of schools recently, like Colorado, University of Colorado. I spoke with him just last week, and he doesn't have any athletic scholarship money, but he's a D1A team.
Wow.
Right? There's zero athletic scholarship money, but it's funded. They get to travel under the ticket of the university, but everything in terms of education and the payment to the school, it comes out of mom and dad's pocket for the most part, and they get their scholarships based on academics or financial need, which that's another topic. So it's all there. It's all there. We just need to figure it out. Like any kids within Florida that have that you guys come across, send them to me. I always do like free consultations and give them a guideline so they can,
Gavin is the man when it comes to scholarships. Well, before we go, Charlie and I have had the playoffs have been a big discussion in U19 rugby of late. Now, last year, for those of you that don't know, last year Cardinal Gibbons won the state title. Charlie, were they a 7 seed or an 8 seed last year?
8.
7? They were 8 last year, says Charlie.
Yeah.
So the discussion has come up, and I don't think a decision has been made for this upcoming season yet, is how many teams should make the cup playoffs. Let's go around the table, and I want everybody's opinion on this. Should all 8 teams make the playoffs, or should just top 4 make the cup, and then the next 4 or
Ross,
6, top 2? Go ahead, Charlie.
Before we start going around, I just want to say this decision about how a playoff should work obviously has to be made not from the interest of each club, what is better for them, but what is better for the sport, right? And also, I just want to say that having a playoff that includes pretty much every team that has played in the regular season is not a playoff, right? I mean, a playoff is...
Charlie, don't get this started.
This is a very basic thing. You have playoffs.
It's not,
Why?
It's not, though.
Because you here in the States, we really like to have playoffs. We don't want to just have a tournament and whoever does best in the regular season, as it happens in some other countries, wins on other sports. We like to have playoffs to get it more exciting, which is great. But you cannot have a playoff with everybody. At least we should change the name if they decide to go with everybody goes to the playoffs. So that's all I wanted to say.
Chris Vassell, go. You're going first. Playoffs. All 8 teams or just 4?
I'd like the idea for all 8 teams.
Okay.
There's a particular strategy on our end. Just maybe gives us a chance to, at the end of the year when all our injuries are over and guys come back from the injured reserve, maybe we get a chance to work our way up, because we're not, we're kind of missing some numbers just due to injury and surgery and stuff like that. So I'm just looking at a end that,
we don't want a longer season, right?
Yeah, it's a longer season, but if we're kind of on the 5th or 6th spot, then maybe when we get all of our guys back, kind of help us out to get through that. But on the other hand, to short up the season, the option 2, which is just semis and finals.
Don't sit on the fence, Chris. Don't sit on the fence here.
I'll stick with my first option. All 8 teams in.
All right. Chris likes all 8 teams. Colin.
Definitely 4 teams for me.
All right.
I think that 8. It's kind of just giving out like a participation trophy. Like, if you're not winning games during the season, you don't deserve to be in the playoffs. And I also think that it kind of delegitimizes the sport. I think that good athletes want to compete. They don't want to have a bad season and be like, oh, yeah, we made the playoffs. You know what I mean? It's I just think it's not good for the sport in general. I think that you should have to work to get there, So
I appreciate that point of view. Ale.
We at Key Biscayne are for the most games that the kids can play. At the end of the day, we are developing the sport, and the kids should have plenty of games. And the other thing is, rules. Whatever decision is made, it should be made, and it should be, people should follow it. Because in a couple of seasons ago, things change in the middle of the game, and that is wrong.
Yeah,
and that's bad.
I do remember that.
So for me, there has to be a decision, and that decision will follow it. again, the values, the respect. We all play rugby. We know, you win and you lose, and that's fine. At the end of the day, you have friends from the other clubs. You have a barbecue or the parrilla, as Gavin likes to say it, and we're all happy. And if we're older, we have beers.
Exactly.
Right.
Gavin, before Charlie and I have our say, Gavin, from our guests.
For me, in the past, I've really enjoyed. Like, I remember one of the years we ended up, I guess, probably 5th or 6th in the league,
right?
And we got that second bite when they did four teams going to the real final, and then the second, the 5th through 8th.
Yeah,
and it was the guys that it was a less competitive, playoffs, but they got another chance to play a bit more rugby. It was competitive, so that was still, people wanted to play because it was competitive. Obviously, it didn't have the shine of winning the legit state championship, but it was a very good way to allow those lower down level teams, the 7th and 8th places, to really have another bash at it instead of getting their ass handed to them by the team that's obviously going to go on and win number 1, right? The top 4 teams are going to be stronger than the second 4 teams. And that worked out. It gave those 7 and 8 places a good competitive couple of games at the end of the season, so they can really show their skills.
Yeah, but you did that last year, and have Gibbons would have annihilated everybody in that 5 through 7.
Right.
So on that side of things, I can see their point of view. Charlie, give us your points. Give us your thoughts here.
Well, I'm definitely for having as Gavin was saying, and we have done this in the past. At the end of the season, we can have 2 tiers of playoffs. The first 4, which should be the best teams, playing among themselves, and the second 4 playing among themselves. In theory, normally, it doesn't always happen, as we saw last year, but the bottom 4 teams should be not as good as the first 4. And
of course,
doesn't always happen, but that would be like the logical conclusion. So I would break it up and so they can go on playing for the playing argument. Okay, go on playing, but each group plays for the cup, the shield, whatever, and also the 1 versus 8, 2 versus 7. In theory, you're gonna have like the strongest team playing against the weakest team, right?
Traditionally, yes.
Well, yeah. I mean, normally there are abnormalities also, but
yes. So we have a big one in red and black, red and white.
Those would not be nice games, I remember when my kids were playing, they had the 2-tier system. So we went to play like a final against the Naples B team. Had we had to go and play in a system like this against the A team, it would be like 100-0 game, and nobody wants that, right?
Yeah.
Nobody benefits from that.
Nah. So and listen, and the first thing, as I said, hey, it's a playoff. Not everybody goes to the playoff. So let's just break it up. Everybody continues playing, and we reward a good season, for the teams that manage to do that throughout the season. But it's in the hands on the clubs. My understanding is on Monday they're going to vote on this. So whatever they want, it's up to them.
We'll find out.
None of our business, Ross.
Yeah, no, I think it's definitely a complicated one, and I'm glad we have an odd number of teams that will be able to vote on this and come to an agreement. I think there's obviously positives and negatives for all of this, whether having the 8 or the 4 or even a 6, where the top 2 teams get a bye. Now we don't have many weeks to do that though. But listen, I come from a country where used to, if you won the whole thing throughout the season, you won. You didn't have to go to a playoff. Of course, now we love playoffs in England as well, unfortunately. But well, gentlemen, listen, we could go on all night here.
So what is your take, Ross?
Yeah, man. What's yours?
Come on, man.
I think the 4 and 4 is the way to go. I don't like that it sort of punishes teams, but I think it encourages teams like Cardinal Gibbons to perhaps not focus on getting wrestlers, to focus on getting rugby players. And Charlie, what you said, they're having a U16 team this year, which shows me that they are expanding and looking at getting those numbers of kids starting early and saying, well, maybe I want to play rugby rather than go wrestle. Maybe I want to get to that top 4 rather than just sort of handing them a playoff spot because they finish 8th. So I'm okay with the 4 and 4.
Okay, so it's going to be okay. So it's 4-4. It's decided.
Okapi jumps in here. How's it done on the men's side? Well, it depends which year we're talking about, Okapi, right? I mean, it's been different ways, different years. This year we're back to combining D2 and D3 again. We've had similar 4-4 situations before. We've had I don't know, what is it this year, Charlie? I haven't looked at the schedule.
But it's never like the 8 go to playoffs. It's always top 4, always.
Especially since they've combined into sort of the
this year we have this combined championship, D2, D3, and then but once the season is over, the playoffs are within their own division. Yeah.
They split up. And I think they have semifinals at most, right? I don't think we have quarterfinals. Just semis and finals, right?
Yes, for the D2, D3, I believe so.
I think that's plenty. Well, gentlemen, Gavin McLeavy from Okapi, Ali Nino from Key Biscayne, Chris Vassell from Boca, better late than never, sir, as always, and Colin Odell.
Nice hat.
Thanks for joining us tonight. We were hoping to have a few more people. I'd love to have heard from Rocky from Gibbons and Alan Lawson from Wellington, but
he did let us know, Rocky, that
he had a meeting for football.
Last-minute meeting from the football team. So.
But listen, best of luck to you all this season. Thanks for all you do.
Yes.
In promoting youth rugby and keeping things going here in the state of Florida, and we'll have you guys on, I'm sure, again in the spring, and we'll keep tabs with everybody.
What's up, my brothers? Merry Christmas to everyone. I'll see you guys.
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
See you, boys.
Coordinating Ross and Charlie.
That's right.
Good to see you all.
Anytime.
Have a good one. Cheers.
Thanks.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
There we go.
All right, good stuff, Charlie. And we could have got on forever there, but I know.
Oh yeah, man.
Shout out to Christian from Key Biscayne who's saying hi on the chat. As always, thanks for checking out TFRO. You can always check us out if you missed us live on YouTube or on Facebook on the video replay or on any major podcast platforms. I think I don't know if we'll be back before the Christmas break or not, Charlie. We'll have to see. Maybe.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Maybe we're just back when the season starts. Hopefully on a weekly basis.
Season doesn't really get going until the 22nd. There are a couple of games on the 15th, but we do have some time in January to perhaps do a couple of preview episodes on how things are going to go.
We have to work on our sponsors. We need the 2 sponsors for the season.
Yes, get in touch with either of us if you'd like to help out, obviously.
Then nobody's going to get in touch. We're going to have to be calling people, which I will do. And hopefully we'll have a couple of sponsors. And it's going to be a great season. Very complicated. I have like all this right now. We have pretty much every schedule, and it's really going to get sort of crazy at the end because we're going to have like some divisions playing finals, other divisions playing semis,
Oh yeah, it all comes down to me trying to find rest for everybody.
That's not going to be possible. I'm going to tell you right now, we're going to have to import some referees, I believe.
If you want a referee, get in touch with me, please.
Yeah, quickly. Hey, Ross, thank you very much.
Stuff, mate. Yep, see you soon.
Hey, you didn't say anything about my shirt. What's up with that, man?
Oh, listen, it has a lovely shirt.
Yeah.
Was it 2011?
Yeah.
It was slightly better than 2015 World Cup, so that's okay. As long as it wasn't a 2015 England shirt.
Oh. Okay, man. Nice seeing you.
Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Charlie, we'll see you soon.
We'll see you soon. Goodbye.